It's Friday night, which means it's time for another episode of the Friday Night Nicktoons podcast. I'm Ashli.
And I'm Casey. Last time we talked about the SpongeBob episode, Artist Unknown. It is a classic. We say that a lot, but I think this one is a true classic. This was to celebrate Ashli's Nick Trivia Prize, which was a bold and brash on canvas.
Yes, which it is still the most beautiful piece of artwork I have ever owned. We also put out our weekly Twitter poll asking you guys what you would do to the marble. We had 11% with taste the marble, 24% would date the marble, and a nice big ol' majority there, 65% would be the marble.
Fascinating. I wonder why that is, because at first, the Twitter poll, I remember the first few answers that came in, I just happened to see, and date the marble was way ahead, and I just thought, well, I guess everyone's going to pick that.
I guess, for me, my thoughts were like, I don't really want to taste a marble, that's kind of gross. A marble is an inanimate object, so dating it is a little bit strange, but if I am a marble, then that's not super weird. I don't know.
Well, I think it's also the peak of the crescendo of
That's
the moment. True. It's you gotta blah the marble, you gotta be the marble, like it's arriving at that, so yeah, maybe more people remembered it.
Totally valid. But yeah. You know, I'm glad yeah. that we've analyzed this.
Yeah, this one perplexed me. We had to get into that a little bit. Although I think I voted for Be the Marble.
I did as
who
well.
Am I to talk? And I can't explain why I did. Okay. This week, we are doing My Life as a Teenage Robot for the first time in over a year. Thank you to Cam, our regular and longtime listener, who recommended the show and the episode Victim of Fashion. And you know, the last time we covered this, Ashli, was the Teenage Robot special that we did in episode 19, I think it was. So we haven't just done one in a long time.
Yeah, and this is, you know, I'm glad we're bringing it back, and it's another thing, I wouldn't have wanted to do another Teenage Robot special with 3 episodes, because I wouldn't want sort of this unfair balance, but again, it makes it a lot easier. We just throw this one episode on in there, so thank you so much, Cam, for suggesting it. Sort of related to that, if you guys have any suggestions, you can hit us up on Twitter, and be sure to follow us there at FNN_podcast. You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/FNN podcast, and review us on iTunes so others can find the podcast as well. Also, be sure to check out and comment on our new YouTube page. I've seen a few of you guys have been commenting there, and we really appreciate that. Hoping to sort of build a community out, so I'm glad that we've gotten some traffic there.
100%. Yeah, I'm already excited about the move to YouTube that we've made. So we had some fun. To give Cam yet another shout out, Cam posed the question, what was it? Who would win in a fight, J.K. Simmons or Squidward, I think, in terms of the Whiplash comparison. I thought that was kind of funny.
It's good stuff.
It is. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Now let's get started.
From the Nicktoons Animation Studio in Hollywood.
Alright, and as we said before, this week's episode is from My Life as a Teenage Robot. It's entitled Victim of Fashion, from Season 2, Episode 12, originally aired on September 6th, 2005.
And in this one, a fashion war erupts between Jenny and the Crust Cousins, and it's another classic episode of Jenny having to balance being a robot and being a teenager, the two things about this show.
Yes, I mean, it's right there in the title, right? Yeah. It is her life as a teenage robot, and it's, you get what it is.
Yeah, the show knows itself. I feel like we watch some Nicktoons that don't quite know what they are, and this one absolutely does.
Yeah, and I think we've made this comparison before, too. It's kind of a similar situation to Danny Phantom, where it's like he's a ghost, but he also has to deal with the teenage things, like sort of a similar deal. I don't know, I think it's hard to pit them against one another, but there are definitely aspects to each show I think I like better.
Yeah.
And I think
They're both a little too action for me. I mean, it's not the show's fault. I don't really like action movies. I don't like the genre necessarily, so I feel like I came in with that bias to this show and Danny Phantom.
I think that maybe that's part of what it is for me too. I will say I think I like Teenage Robot a little bit more than you do, Casey. If I had to put a guess on it.
I prefer it to Danny Phantom.
I think I agree with that too. Definitely the action scenes in this show I think are a lot more exciting, and that they're more playful, I think, is what it is too. Like, they do interesting things in them. Like, there's, well, we'll get to it, but they do things that are a little bit more fun, and Jenny's got all these different moves, so it's a little bit more exciting than, like, the ghost punches the other ghost into the, it's...
I think it's funnier, too. I think Tuck is hilarious.
Oh, I love Tuck. I absolutely love Tuck. He's gotta be one of my favorite characters of the show, and I like the nerdy little Sheldon, and honestly, I think this show doesn't have... Oh my god, wait, what's his name? Is his name Tucker?
Brad?
Is that his name?
Brad? Tucker?
No. The one we hate from Danny Phantom.
Oh, Tucker, yes.
Yeah, okay, I was like Tuck and Tucker, that's so weird.
Yeah, that is
Love
weird.
Tuck, hate Tucker. Anyways, getting into this episode, I think it's a fun little concept here.
Yeah.
Basically, Jenny decides that she wants to be fashionable because
she's
the
beating
crust
up
cousins.
Right. Well, first it starts with her. She's beating up on the the bikers. What are they called? The biker slugs or something.
No,
Not
hold
slugs.
on. You had it written down here.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
I thought I put it in my notes. I sent you the link.
Oh,
because
the space bikers.
That's what it is. Very on the nose. Yeah. And go look up the Wikipedia page, or the My Life as a Teenage Robot wiki page for the space bikers, because sorry if someone who's listening to this wrote it, but it's like the most poorly written of all of the poorly written wikis. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's all over the place. There's sentences where I was like, I don't even know what this is getting at.
The syntax is just terrible. It's amazing. So what I quickly realized, or I guess remembered, is that Cree Summer is one of the Crust cousins. Adore her. And what I think is kind of interesting about this is obviously voice actors of color very often voice characters that are white. But for some reason, Cree Summer's characters are usually animated as black. And there are two Crust cousins, right, of the main ones, or just total, right? There are only two.
I think there's just the two, yeah.
And one is white, presumably, one is black, presumably, and Cree voices the white one. I thought that was a really interesting choice.
You know, I'm a little bit interested, too. Who's the voice actress of the other one?
I don't know, but I was doing some digging and I saw that Eartha Kitt had a recurring role on this show as the queen, like Nexus, I think her name was. If you Google a picture of her, you'll recognize her immediately. And like Eartha Kitt is like a Broadway sort of comedian legend. I thought that's hilarious that she did a Nicktoon.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, actually.
She sings that Santa Baby song, the iconic recording that's always on.
I just looked it up. Moira Quirk is actually the voice of the other of the Crust cousins. She's an English actress and is very much white, so maybe that was an intentional kind of funny little play then. Yeah,
maybe a little nod to like people who know their voice actors.
Yeah, so that's pretty funny though.
Yeah. So we got to talk about Sheldon's... Oh yeah, well, basically she gets covered in oil and grease and disgusting, and it's a classic Jenny conundrum because she, has this awesome fight, and it's really cool. Like, she is on top of it, and she kicks their butts.
She turns their bike into a snowboard with her face on it.
Yeah,
which
was
pretty
great.
Cool.
And at the end of the day, she's worried about all the like gross, nasty stuff she got on her, and that she has to go back to school. So she's still insecure at the core of it. And it's like, why do you care what high schoolers think of you when you just like beat up supervillains? Yeah,
but she still does. She wants to fit in. She wants to be a normal teenager as much as a robot can.
Yeah.
So she ends up cleaning herself off, and she puts on a fresh coat of wax, and the Crust cousins, immediately terrible people. So she walks in, and everyone's super excited they're no longer excited by the Crust Cousins outfits. So they decide to make fun of her. Because again, she walks in. She's like, I just got a fresh coat of wax. And everyone's like, you're so shiny. You look so pretty. And they're like, well, yeah, but she wears the same thing every single day.
And I love the fact that she hadn't thought about this once in her life.
She looks through, like, different photos throughout the years, like, I really have. Like, of course you have.
It's like the concept of clothes doesn't exist to her, which is great, but it's like if she's constantly thinking about high school pressure, that's a pretty big one.
Yeah, I guess, that's why it gets called out here, right? As the, well, duh, obviously. So she goes through, well, Sheldon also mentions that he has all these old fashion magazines, which is grade A.
Yeah, it reminds me, Ashli and we used to binge Hey Arnold all the time in high school, and I forget which episode it was, but...
Oh, it's the one where Helga's going to, like, a sleepover or something, and she's, like, trying to make herself look all good or something. I don't remember all the deets,
and she's looking at a magazine, and the, like, big picture story just said, boys, with a question mark. We thought that was hilarious. And these magazines all have similar captions here of just sort of like generic whatever. And like in one of Sheldon's boxes, it just says Trek Wars, which I thought was kind of funny to anger both fan bases. But can we talk about the 70s montage, though? The 70s looks when they first start the fashion war? Because at first I was like, Cam, I don't know about this. Like, why'd you put us through this episode specifically? And as it got on, I was like, I totally get it. Like, this episode is so unlike other Nicktoons because it's very just kind of inundated with queer culture, which is not something you can say about many Nicktoons.
Yeah, it's something, man. And I also just love the creativity, right? Like, we go through all of these different sets of different outfits, and I just think that you can tell that they had a lot of fun with it. Like, each one is... So, right, we start out with the 70s looks, and they come up with different ways for Jenny to, like, transform herself into them, and I think it's just a really fun, creative sort of fashion war between them.
And the, like, montage kind of style is fun. Like, she like grows pumps out of her feet and they fill with water with a robotic fish in it. Like, that's awesome. I don't know if a storyboard artist came up with that or if it was in the script, but kudos to whoever did, because that's really clever.
Yeah, and it really isn't. It's all in the details here. There's one there in like ball gowns, and she transforms into one, and she gets like an old fashioned clock up on her fancy wig and stuff. Like, it's just the little details that get to you, and
the unity is fun. Like, all of Jenny's, like, Brad, Tuck, and Sheldon are all helping her on this, and there aren't really like misogynistic jokes about like, oh, the guys think fashion's weird. Like, they all get kind of into it. At first they're a little, I don't know, but they're excited about this too, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I do need to mention there's a lot of different ones. But they kind of have this showdown moment, and they're like dressed like cowboys, and Jenny like uses a guitar as a gun to punch holes into a cowboy hat, like a metal cowboy hat, or not whatever, and like gets the word loser in holes, like shot into this, and like has it land on one of the Crust Cousins, and I lost it. It was so good.
Everything about that was so cool and smooth.
Yeah, she just does it, like, just right there. And, like, a part of me was like, is she going too far? Is she being too mean to them? And then I was like, well, they're also kind of terrible, so I don't know.
Yep. Can we talk about the extended synchronized swimming
bit,
too? They end up in a pool for part of this fashion show, and the whole school gets into it. There's, like, paparazzi, red carpet. I thought that was really fun. That's sort of Fairly Odd Parents universe style of, like, this would never really happen in a high school, but it's a cartoon, so we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. They just own it. And, yeah, there's the paparazzi, there's the whole she like her dress turns into a fountain, and then they swim around. Everything's nuts, man.
And that starts as a fart joke, right? Because they're just hanging out in the pool, and suddenly there's a few bubbles, and a girl looks at the guy like, "Excuse you?" And he's like, "No, it wasn't me." And then Jenny emerges from the water in this giant clam robot suit.
Yes, and it's it's just great. And it keeps going, too. It's like, all right, I get it. She's in, like, a clam robot suit. And it just keeps, like, gaining layers and
Right.
complexity. And it's just fun. There's a lot of fun going on here. But then they come up with their new terrible plan here to make sure that Jenny can't win the fashion war. Because she keeps just crazily one-upping them, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they end up having this extended laugh scene when they formulate their plan, and it just went on too long for me. I was like, is this really happening? Come on.
Yeah, and it's the same. We've had those similar comments about, like, that yell joke where the yell goes on for too long. Not quite that annoying, but it's the same concept of, like, I get it. I get it. Like,
right. But
part of me just feels like it's stuck on a loop or something.
Right. Well, this episode takes a real significant turn in my book in terms of greater commentary, because I remember thinking at about the halfway mark, like, they could go a lot of different directions at this point, because basically their plan is to, like, make Jenny think she's fat, essentially, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I think
that's
it's a
part of
mixture. I think it's kind of it's a play on that, but also knowing that she can't pull off the quote unquote thin look, right? Because
Right.
she can't make herself thinner. She can only add things. So it's
Right.
kind of, and it's definitely a play on weight as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially because, Jenny literally cannot gain or lose weight, but still has these issues, which I think was a really interesting and cool choice.
Yeah, and we, so, right, they dress up thin. Jenny tries, she can't be, and she decides, you know what? I want to lose all of my weapons. I want it all gone. And she says, I want to be fashionable, not functional. And yeah, I will say this is probably my least favorite part of the episode. It's just, there's this really long scene of her getting all of her weapons removed, and I felt like it went on a little too long. That might just be me, but
yeah, some of the physical comedy was kind of cute, and like the Brad Tuck relationship is always kind of entertaining for me. Like, they're always sort of bickering, so there was a little bit of that. But yeah, it didn't need to go on as nearly as long as it did.
which I will say too, and I kind of always, not always, but often end up feeling this way about these full-length Nicktoons. Part of me just can't help but feel like we could have maybe, cut some time out here, cut a little bit of moments there, and maybe we didn't necessarily need it to be quite as long. And it felt like that was them realizing, like, there's not a lot of content, but we're a
Right.
full-length show, so we've got to keep it going.
The all grown up move.
Not anywhere near as bad as that, though.
Yeah.
That show feels so long to me. I don't know what it is.
This is a true fact. Not a single thing happens in the entire series of All Grown Up. There are no plot points whatsoever.
Honestly, sometimes it feels like there's like a plot point per 4 episodes we've seen, and it's anyways.
Yeah.
So not
here
anywhere
nor
near
there.
that bad, but just a little bit longer. But I
Right.
think there's a couple of good jokes. There's one where she's like, Sheldon's taking out some part of her, and her nose lights up like Operation, like the game, and it's
Yeah, that was funny.
there's cute moments for sure.
Right.
But
But what was interesting to me about this fight scene that it becomes the climax of the episode, getting into that, is that Jenny has, de-weaponized herself fully. And once that happens, the space bikers, of course, come back. And, she can't do anything. She's lost her... It's the classic fairy tale, the witch who trades her powers for beauty and all that. And she can't fight them, so she has to find some creative solutions.
yeah, and this is, again, what I was talking about before. The fight scene is fun. She's pretty much just little pieces of metal. They, like, bend her into a spring and, like, throw her around, and, like, they have all these fun little plays that make the fight scenes, for me, a person who doesn't necessarily like them in general, I had a fun time with it. I really did.
And it was short.
Yeah, it was kept to a good length. But then
Tucker says, "Get away from her, you fish." Just the way he said that, like it was the worst insult in the world, was hilarious.
yes, and he was actually a little bit earlier. He was told by Brad, like, "Hey, you can watch the pile. That will be your job, to like watch the pile of weapons." But he somehow manages to fashion this like robot suit situation out of it all. And he comes in there, and he is just prepped to wreck some bikers. And it's also like Jenny lists out a few weapons that she's trying to use, and then she's like, wait, where's this one? Where's that one? And of course, those are the ones that he uses, right? I don't remember, all of the slingshot net or something that, and some kind of mallet. I don't remember what they all are, but I do always like the, it reminds me of a little bit of like Go-Go Gadget, like, Go-Go Gadget, this crazy thing. You know what I'm talking about? Did you ever watch that show?
100%. Okay. not a ton, but I know the concept.
Yes.
Yeah. It was fun, and at the end, they're, like, talking about, there's some comment about Tuck not really caring about the fashion show, and then they're, like, asking him about his style for the robot suit, and he suddenly just gets really into it.
Yeah, like seconds before, he's like, I can't believe that you would give up all of your weapons just for fashion. And then he's like, oh, well, I picked out this... Sorry, I had to die there for a second. He's like, oh, yeah, like, I picked out this outfit based on this and that. It's kind of funny how, the attention makes him buy into it.
Right. And that he's kind of secretly always been in on it. Like he said, looks like we have a down and dirty fashion war right at the beginning of the episode. And then Jenny kind of brings Sheldon along at the end, which was nice. She kind of grabs him like by the ear or whatever. I don't know. I like Sheldon.
I do too. I ship them. A little bit.
Yeah.
But
I'm probably more a Jenny Brad if I had to. But...
That's fair. Maybe I'm just always rooting for the underdog, you know what I mean?
Sure. Well, this was really fun. I made a note. I'm kind of looking forward to ignoring this show for an entire year again. I enjoyed it, but it's one of those that I feel like I'll be like, all right, next week we could do Teenage Robot, but what if we did this instead?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, Cam. I'm sure we will fit it in again in there somewhere, but yeah, especially with one episode a week, it gets really difficult to pick and choose all of these shows and episodes we're doing, so I think I'm glad we sort of got rid of some of the cobwebs on this one, brought it back out, but, we'll have plenty of other content for a while.
Absolutely. But yeah, overall enjoyed this episode, and I'm glad we checked it out again.
Same with me.
Alright, shall we move on?
I believe we shall. All right, our Twitter poll for you guys this week is a simple one. Which is more important, fashion or function? It's really it's a tough call here. It's the central theme of this episode, so we wanted to hear what you guys think.
Totally, yeah. I feel like Jenny comes out of this with pluses and minuses for both. So, yeah, next week we are doing an episode that I thought of while we were watching this one for some reason. But I thought of it and just knew that we had to do it next. It is Capture the Flag from Rocket Power. This episode sticks out in my memory more than any other episode of Rocket Power. I've mentioned it many times over the last, 80 episodes, and I'm so excited to see if it holds up.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one too. I mean, what's more nostalgic than a combination of Rocket Power and Capture the Flag? Just two amazing childhood things.
For sure.
Also, be sure, again, follow us on Twitter, find us on Facebook, as well as YouTube now, and be sure to hit up iTunes, leave us those reviews. We appreciate all of your guys' feedback.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.